channel.
Yeah, you can see the chat there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Deconversion Stories. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with my friend Nate Broady. You guys know him he's got a YouTube channel. The link is below. If you're not subbed, you really should be, because he talks about a lot of important legal things, I guess, that revolve around sort of the atheist community. Well, he's spoken about certain atheists that are having lawsuits right now. And he's also, we were just chatting about how Ken Hovine's trying to sue the government for $500 million fucking dollars or whatever the hell it was, because they break the laws of God or something. Yeah, go into this a little bit more with me, Nate, before we get into the deconversion stuff.
Well, all right. Well, Ken Hovind is suing. Remember, Ken Hovind was convicted for structuring and all these other tax laws where he didn't pay, income, where he didn't pay payroll tax and things of that nature. So he decided to sue the government to more or less overturn that conviction. So he's saying he was falsely prosecuted. He's suing the prosecutors who prosecuted him and all these other people, right? That were involved in both the investigation and the prosecution of Ken Hovind. So he's suing them for $500 million. And his lawsuit is essentially, he's saying he's a sovereign citizen. He's saying that since he's a sovereign citizen, the United States government doesn't have any authority over him. And that's essentially his lawsuit. So God's law comes in is because he's saying that because he's not a citizen. Ken Hovind's not a U.S. citizen. Since he's not a citizen, then he wants the courts to apply God's law. And God's law says, pay him $500 million. That's the lawsuit in a nutshell.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Because, God could literally, I mean, he's omnipotent, right? He's all powerful. He could just snap his fingers and there'd be $500 million, like Thanos with the Infinity Glove. There'd be $500 million in this fucking account right then and there, right? So
it's a couple of numbers for God. If a hacker could do it, I think God could do it. You know what I'm saying?
Who do you think taught the hackers?
Amen to that. Amen to that.
All right, with all the hilarious Hovine shit aside, basically, Nate, what I do here is I talk to people about their journeys away from their previous belief systems, whatever they were, and the kinds of effects that this has on your life and stuff like that, and how you ended up. I'd like to know how you ended up becoming a lawyer and how you ended up becoming sort of somewhat of an atheist activist as well. So. Take us back on that journey. Like, take us to the earliest part where you remember the dominoes starting to fall and you sort of worming your way out of it all. Did I lose you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. It's like I have like this huge delay. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my system. Hold on, let me see if I can stop this just to make sense. All right, there it is. I'm back. Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
What happened? All right. So you were saying for my, I'm thinking because it's funny when I hear I've listened to a couple of the deconversion stories here on your channel, and everybody seems to have that moment, with this is what took me away, and I didn't have that moment. Mine was kind of like a gradual fall from believing so everybody knows, so let me stop talking in abstracts. First, I was a Christian. I was a young earth creationist. I believed evolution was devil's work. I believed the whole thing. I was Kit Hovind and what's his name, the guy from what was that show, the one he was with, what's the actor from that show who's now a huge creationist, Kirk Cameron.
Kirk Cameron,
Kirk Cameron fan. I'm talking about I was in it like crazy. I was in it. And my favorite argument was, if evolution is true, if we came from monkeys, why do we still have monkeys? Are these the stupid monkeys that are still in Africa? That was like my thing.
Right.
So when I started questioning stuff, really was just, I had never honestly believed the bullshit. Like, how do I say this without being offensive? I never really believed it.
Okay.
I always accepted it, but I never truly believed it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I accept it as true, but I really don't believe that this is really what's happening. It's just that this was the only explanation people are giving me who I trust. My change started happening when the first time I ever questioned whether there was a God or not is when I figured out Santa Claus was kind of BS. I figured out Santa Claus. Now I was like maybe 10 or 10 or 12 or something like that. I was real young. And when I found out Santa Claus was kind of BS, because I saw my mom, like I had caught them, like I came home early and I saw them like, shuffling all the toys into the closet, and I noticed it was like the Transformer with the ninja grip that I had wanted. I saw them throw inside there. So I was like, oh,
Nice.
So Christmas Day popped up and I saw, Optimus Prime. I was like, all right, here we go. Santa Claus's mom and dad, So, So at that point, I realized that I was being lied to. And then it kind of was like, why am I being lied to? Then a tooth fairy started being questioned. I was like, oh, the tooth fairy is really just somebody putting something under your pillow. So all these little things started just like, okay. So people make these things up to comfort other people. That's kind of the way I thought about it. Then I thought about it with like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. I was like, oh, okay, these are just things out. Space aliens. I was like, okay, this is just something we all do. We just make shit up and say it's this and that kind of happens. And the thing that kept me from just fully going that way with the God concept was just the fact that my mom believed it. My father believed it. My everybody, my grandmother believed it. All the people at work believed it. All the people at school believed it. Everybody believed this thing. And it was kind of like, if you didn't believe it, either something was wrong with you, you were extremely dumb, or God just, didn't reveal himself to you in that way, but God was real, it's as real as me sitting in this bed talking to my God. Was real to everybody. I equate it to this. Have you ever saw that movie, They Live?
Yes.
With Roddy Piper.
Yep.
Roddy Piper, right? And he puts on the glasses and he gets to see the world.
Conform, obey. Yeah. I
felt like Roddy Piper.
Oh, yeah.
I put the glasses on and I see something. I see like all this shit. But I believe I chose at that time to keep the glasses off. I can put the glasses on, but I chose not to put them on. I chose to live in the dream because it was more comfortable to live in the dream world than it was to live in reality. And that's kind of how I started leading myself away from, Christianity. Those were like my first ideas of leaving away from it. I know it's a lot, but it wasn't just that one thing, but it was kind of that journey of these little drops that eventually became a flood.
Sure. Which makes a lot of sense. I had something very similar, when I found out, because we never had Santa when I grew up because I was raised as a Jew. So, but all my friends did, right? So I'd stay over their places on Christmas, and there would always be something from Santa under the tree for me, right? The good Jew kid down the street, right?
Santa loves all. Santa loves all.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike other pretend things we don't. But yeah.
Oh my God. Good.
But yeah, I mean, and then I knew early that the tooth fairy was bullshit because I caught my mom putting money under my pillow. So yeah. I think I was 6 or 7 or something at the time.
Well, right now
I start losing them all.
Yeah, it's funny because right now I'm like Jason Bourne or what's 007 putting the money under my kid's thing. I'm like, waiting for a certain time, or you're in the bathroom. Like I'm really, really cautious with it. But it's funny because to show you, like at one point I thought it was fun to just do the same thing with my daughter for this Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. But she was in 2nd grade, and so she still thought the Tooth Fairy was real, right? So she lost a couple of teeth. So, I gave her like a $10 bill or something like that. Just something crazy. You lost 2 teeth.
Wow.
It's Tooth Fairy miracle, two teeth in one in like a week.
Shit, man. I think I'm gonna come over to your place, knock some teeth out, and
wake
up
cash. Make
$10 a tooth. Fuck, wow.
No, it was 2 teeth. So, we didn't have change. We only had a 10. It was like, it was late at night. So we're like, fuck it. It's Tooth Fairy miracle, right? Whatever. So she wakes up, $10 bills under there. So we're teaching her about money. But she goes to school, tells them about the Tooth Fairy. So all the students in the class is like, do you still believe in the goddamn Tooth Fairy? So come to find out, we get a call from the teacher. They set up this whole experiment about the goddamn Tooth Fairy. So they had this whole thing set up where at recess, one person would fall asleep and they would put like a fake tooth under it and wait to see. Then somebody came to school one time with a real tooth, and then they tried it with the real tooth and nothing happened. Like they really put time and effort into proving this tooth fairy thing true or false. So eventually I had to come out and tell her. I was like, because I didn't want to look like a fool. I'm like, listen, babe, there is no tooth fairy. I am the tooth fairy. And then she was like, what about Santa? And I'm like, we'll talk about that some other time. But the tooth fairy, for sure, it's not real. And the weird part about it is all the kids believed in Santa, but then they believed in the tooth fairy. So tooth fairy had to go. But my daughter now, she puts it together. She was like, yeah, Santa's real, tooth fairy's fake. And she's like, what about Jesus? I'm like, talk to your grandmother. She'll explain it to you. Because it's just a logical conclusion to make, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Especially since no one's really ever seen any of these beings of any, you know, so, I mean, we see them in movies and TV and shit like that, but that's also a realm of fantasy as well. So, yeah.
And just to, go ahead.
No, you were going to say something. I can pop my question out.
No, I was just going to say too, like, I consider myself to be an atheist, right? I don't consider myself to be agnostic because I think that whatever label you put on it, it's just, I just don't believe in the God concept. Right. It's not, I don't care what you call it. I just don't believe in the God, well, I don't believe in the gods that people have presented to me. You know what I'm saying? I just don't believe them.
There have been thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah. So it comes to the fact for me, it's the term atheist means someone who does not believe in a God. Now I know there's some contention out there, some philosophical definition and also the definitions and all this other stuff. But simply put, if you want to identify what does Nate believe, Nate lacks belief in the God concept. And if someone provides sufficient evidence, I'll believe. But as right now, I just don't believe.
Right, exactly. I mean, if sufficient evidence were to come forth and it was convincing, then lots of people are going to believe, right? But that's just the way, realistically, that's just the way the scientific method works. And I was going to say that it sounded like your kids were doing that at school with the scientific method to try and figure out if the tooth fairy was real, right? That's awesome. That's a sign of putting some thought into it, a little bit of critical thinking into it, which is
and even at that age, I think it's impressive. Yeah,
exactly. Because when I was that age, I'd have believed anything you told me.
I'd
have believed that if it was raining chocolate milk outside, I would have been running outside. So, but now you got to convince me that there's beer raining outside.
And I'm out there for the beer. No. But I should have grabbed some beer, but I was like, but
I got a few.
You gotta throw me one through the screen, man. I feel so
virtual
bad.
brewskis. Well, actually, me and Drew were talking about he wants to do a bowl, smoke some weed with me.
Oh, virtually. I know what a bowl is.
Yeah. I figured. But yeah, we were just talking. He messaged me on Twitter. He's like, "We should fucking blaze sometime. We'll do it virtually." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I kind of want to get there to Texas to blaze with you, right? In person."
If you're going to do it, it's best to do it when you're with the whole. I don't know. I always think drinking. Well, don't worry, I drink beer alone. But like, say if I'm going to have hard drinks, then I'd rather do it with people than alone.
With people, sure.
Yeah. So it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have a couple at home after work, and then when my buddies all get, because I get home at like 1:30 usually.
Okay.
Sorry, 2:00. I'm off at 1:30. So, and I'm not far from work. So I get home and I'll crack a couple and have a couple. And then when my buddies get home, I'll go and join them, play some PS4, watch a movie, whatever, crack a couple more. But I don't sit there and put an entire case of beer away like a lot of people I know.
I could, though, to be honest with you.
Me too.
And I have. Oh my God.
There are days when I want to. That's for damn sure. So what happened, like with your family and stuff like that, when you realized you were an atheist? How did they take that? How did that wash with them? All
right, so to get to the point where I was even calling myself an atheist, number one, I wasn't calling myself an atheist at first. I was like, sure. I am agnostic, and the reason why I was saying I'm agnostic, it was atheist light. You know what I'm saying? Atheist in the Black community is a term that was just like devil worshiper or most evil person on the planet, right? If you said atheist, and this is just the Black, I don't know how it is in other communities, but in the Black community, that was just like saying you're the worst person alive, right? And so I had fear of the term when I first started questioning religion. You know, I remember my grandmother said, "So you're an atheist?" And I was like, "Hell no! You know, I'm not an atheist. I just am questioning what these things are you know, what people are saying." And I remember the first person who actually who got me thinking about the term, about not only the term atheist, but actually becoming an atheist, was this chick that I was dating when I was like 20. It had to be 19 or 20. She was from Brazil, and beautiful, like one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. So I'm dating her because, you know, I'm like, you know, so happy. I'm like, you know, all up into it. So then I know
she likes me.
Oh,
she likes
it
me.
was a wonderful summer. I met her in summer school because I was taking summer classes at this community college, and it was fucking fantastic. So anyway, so she spent the night, and the next morning we wake up. It was, I think, Sunday. It was a Sunday, yeah, because my mom has like, "Yo, you want to come to church?" So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to church." So I was like, "Yo, you want to go, but you want to stop by the church?" She worked at she had worked at downtown in the office. She always had nice clothes on. So I was like, "Yo, you can go to church with us, you know, and then hang out and, you know, we eat and all that stuff." It's like, you know, it's a community thing. So she was like, "Nah, she doesn't go to church." She was like, "Don't tell me you believe that shit." And I was like, "Believe what?" She was like, "You believe the Christians stuff? You believe all that crazy shit?" And I was like, "To be honest with you, not really." And she was like, "So why do you pretend?" And I'm like, "Yeah, my mom believes in this. But then she was like, "But you read the Bible, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Have you actually read the Bible yourself? Or have people told you what the Bible say?" And I'm like, "Well, now you're questioning my faith. You know, you know, what are you talking about?" But
the hackles go up.
Yeah. But her questions weren't really, they were triggering me to have you, you know, are you just believing what people are telling you about this? Or are you believing what you know, or have you actually read it? So I tried to read the Bible. It was the toughest read on the planet. I got through half of it. Then I was like, none of this makes sense. So then I tried to read it with a group of people. They couldn't make sense of it. Then I tried to read it with a pastor. We read through the whole thing. It still made no sense. And I don't know if you know a pastor named Benny Hinn.
Yes, Benny Hinn, yep.
So we were in Florida, and I was right then, I was, you know, and I met Benny Hinn. And he asked me, and I asked him a couple of questions about the Bible. I'm like, "Listen, none of this makes sense. What about this? What about this? If God can do anything, why can't he do this?" You know what I'm saying? You're saying that, you know, and eventually he looked at me and said, "You're going to be the great prophet or great atheist." And from
Wait a
that
minute.
point on,
How do you get that or the other?
I'm thinking he was saying, if you can resolve those questions, either you're going to resolve them and be a great Christian,
right?
Or you're going to find out that they're not unresolvable and be an atheist. I'm thinking that was the point of what he had said. But when he said it, it made sense, because then I started just researching. I was like, "Yeah, all this is bullshit." And then I you know, went to college and took a biology course in evolution, and was like, "Okay, this is all bullshit." And it just was you know, just the floodgates open from there. You know, education really bought me out. So I say this because then it led me to the family. So then after I finally got it, I'm like, "You know what? I am an atheist." And I told my mom, my brother, and they had an intervention for me.
Really?
They had an intervention. Yeah, they had an intervention. And they're like, "You know, why don't you believe?" So I explained to them. I was like, "You know, this. Then we started going through the Bible. You know, well, you know, here when God says do this and kill babies and do this."
Yeah,
and
smash against rocks. Yeah.
Then, you know, I remember, yeah, my aunt was started shaking up. She was like, "Oh, you're making me question my faith. You know, the devil is strong within you." So I was like, you know, it's kind of like a Star Wars. I don't
believe in the devil either, man.
Yeah, it's like, you know, the devil is strong in me. But it seemed like my questions and my trying to figure it out for myself kind of forced them to start thinking about it. So then at that point, at the end of the intervention, I was like, "Well, you know, unfortunately, I just don't believe." And from that point on, none of them ever talked to me about religion again.
Really? So they just kind of sidelined the whole thing. They figured you're out and there's no going back.
And no, it went to a pretend. I still went to church sometimes. I still did this. I still did this. I still even prayed with them, but they just act like right now, if you ask my mother and them today, they just act like I'm just a Christian. They would rather live the lie than the truth. And I tell my mom, she cries and she says, "You keep saying you don't believe in anything." No, I believe in stuff. I just don't believe in this crap. But you know, when I go to church, let's pray. I close my eyes and they pray and they do everything. And but they all know, I just don't believe.
So do you still actually go with them to church from time to time, or
sometimes? Because in the Black community, church is more an event it's a community event for both families and people to meet and everything. It's a gathering place. You know, like, you know, if you want to know what everybody's doing in the building or everybody's doing on the block, you go to church and listen to all the rumor mill, you know? And that's where you see and you see people and that's the place you go to, like, for graduations and for weddings and for funerals. You know, it's a place of the church isn't just a place to praise God, but it's a place that communities go to be with each other, to support each other. And that's what church is like. I like, you know, last year I was even at the church and I gave out food and all that stuff. You know, I give my time. So it's more than that type of institution. Just really, it's more of a community-based organization. It just happens to also be a church. So that's how it is in our community.
That's cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting the communities getting together. It makes you stronger, right? It makes your community better. There's lots of benefits from doing stuff like that. Of course, I've always said that there are also secular ways to do this.
Of course,
you don't require a church, but if that's what is the sort of go-to thing that happens, stick with it. Why? I mean, you're going there, you're supporting people that you care about, and that's what really matters.
Yeah.
Right.
It's always funny because it's like I always say the same people you see in the club shaking their behind and, you know, nothing but, you know, bands of Band-Aids on in the club. Those are the same people you see on Sunday, you know, asking for forgiveness. You know, on Saturday you pray it up, and Sunday you ask for forgiveness, and you go through the cycle another week. So it just happens to be that way.
Oh, speak of the devil, we were talking about you, Drew.
Oh, what's going on? But you know, I always find it for me. My biggest when I owned my atheism, because I still at that point didn't really want to tell other people I was an atheist, right? I that's when I took on the agnostic mantra. Right?
Sure.
Mr. Agnostic. You know, you're gonna call me agnostic guy. And who was I watching? Jacqueline Glenn.
She's awesome.
This when I first got to YouTube, and she had called herself agnostic. And then she was struggling with it too. And then I watched the Atheist Experience with Matt and some other people. Then, but that was at the time where Saitan Bruggencate was there. Remember Saitan?
Of course.
He wasn't with. It's when he first started the presuppositional argument,
right?
And he was on the Magic Sandwich Show, so I watched a lot of that. And so I was watching. Yeah. So I was watching those like those really early on in the atheist YouTube thing. And
dark matter.
Yeah, dark matter, exactly. Yes. And
Theremin trees.
Non-stamp collector.
Non-stamp collector, yeah. Even Logic.
Yes,
yes. He came around then too.
So so back then, when I was watching, I was listening to, you know, to just different modes of thought. And I was even listening to the Christian modes of thought too. I was on, a lot of people don't know this, there are many episodes that I was on, what's the show, with Tim, Bible Thumping Wingnut, when him and Matt Slick were doing the show every week. I was on that show many times.
Really?
Yeah. I was on that show many times.
Were you yelling at him, or?
No, you could see I was still personally struggling with the faith. Okay. With the faith, I was an atheist, but I was still struggling with the faith. I was actually looking, early in my YouTube, because I didn't have my channel wasn't a channel; it was just an account I used to talk to people on YouTube, because it was it was a different environment than with Google Hangouts. But my account was really, I was trying to be convinced that the Bible was real, because for me, when I stopped believing and stopped having that connection with people, that there was something lost. Like I wasn't able to connect with my family and friends who were spiritual, and all these people who I felt like I had this deeper connection with, because we all had this shared experience of this extrasensory experience. I didn't have that anymore. I did, like when they were happy that and had these religious experience, I always felt that there was something I'm now missing. I felt like there was a hole in my heart. There was something I was missing. I was missing having these real experiences with people I love. And I couldn't understand it. But at a point, I just had to, you kind of had to accept that I would never have those experiences again, because I couldn't force myself to believe something that I knew wasn't true. I had to be convinced that it was true. And that was kind of my way in coming into the community. Just let me see if I can prove this to be true. Let me see if Matt Slick's argument works for me, which it was convincing until Matt Dillahunty blew it up. I was like, okay, yeah, this is bullshit. Until Sidekick Brewing Kate, I was like, yeah, he's right. Until I did a little further research and I saw Ozymandias and somebody else destroy the argument from like the ground. And I was like, okay, so this is another bullshit argument. Then William Lane Craig was somebody. I was like, okay, he's somebody I could talk to. But then I found out his argument. And then when I did the research for myself, it was just like, unless God comes down here and shakes my hand and says, hey, guy, you were wrong. That's the only way I'm really going to believe now. I have to. If a roadside conversion was good enough for Paul, it's going to be as good. It's good enough for me too. You know what I mean?
Oh no, that's not the one. There we go. And now you only watch GM Skeptic videos, right?
That's right. Yes.
I hate to break it to you, Drew, but he snuck in a couple of mine too. And quite often I've got you when you go live and stuff. I've often got you on when I'm at work, just listening in the background, because I'm at work working in the lab and doing chemistry shit and whatnot. So, but if somebody says something, or if you talk about something that makes me go, wait a second, and I turn around and I start typing shit, right? Which I've done a couple of times, and I think you even acknowledged me one time.
Oh, well, I try, because it's funny, because my channel, I don't know where it's going, to be honest with you. It's just like, at first I was doing law stuff, then I was doing comic stuff, then I do movie reviews on my channel. But now, since the movie reviews have stopped, I can't do any of those because there's no movies. So I'm doing the law stuff, and I think a lot of people really do like the law angle to it, especially from my background. And one thing, it's the hardest thing about becoming a lawyer was it was. Weren't
you a cop first?
Yeah, I was. It's a long story. Just so my background. My parents, and so everybody understands where I'm coming from and how I got to where I'm at now. It's funny because everybody always sees the end of the journey, but they never understand the true journey. Both my parents were... That's
exactly why I do the show, just to hear that journey, right?
Yes. A lot of people don't understand. Both my parents were crackheads in the height of the crack epidemic in Harlem. So we were in Harlem, the height of the crack epidemic, and that was our life, and we were taken away from my parents, right? My parents were just in the drugs. First, when my sister was taken away, then me and my brother were taken away. So they were drug addicted crackheads, and growing up in that environment, I like just plain message. I dropped out of high school. I had a horrible, at one point, I was told that the only thing for me was to get maybe like a welding job or something and hope to be a member of society. I remember a counselor told me one time, you'll probably be in jail before your 23rd birthday.
Fuck off. Seriously? That's what they told you?
Well, but you're a black male, they're not going to school, I'm failing all the classes. It was just one of those things. And to be honest with you, school actually came very easy for me. But I just was like, but we had no money. I would go to school, everybody had nice sneakers on. I got holes in my sneakers. We didn't have any money to eat. It was just one of those, being a kid in that type of environment was just rough. All we had was God, food stamps, and the next person that would beat you because they were having a bad day. So that was our life. That was our everyday. I'm saying? It's like, people don't understand that we used to, you know, have to kick roaches off out of our cereal box every morning. We'd open cereal, pour it into the bowl, and pick all the roaches out of the cereal box. Like that was us. And that, coming from that environment, I remember when I had become a security guard, and I was making, I forgot what it was, like $5-6 an hour or something like that. I thought it was like the best job in the world. You know, I was able to sit there, look good, work out. You know, it was work out, go to work, go to the club, and then work out again. That was like my life. and
no sleep or eat in there.
No, sleeping and eating. If it wasn't protein to get the muscles up, it was nothing. You know, I was into the whole bodybuilding. And then I remember I had went to this my grandmother, because I was doing like I wasn't really doing bad. I was like rough and rugged. So my grandmother, you know, she had said she had like, yo, why don't you just do this? She's like, I'm going to sign you up. If you want to stay here with me in my house, you got to go do something. So she put me into a program, into a trade school. So I go to the trade school. I'm trying to do the trade school stuff. And the trade school had this thing where, like, if you take a test, you can go to college. So I'm like, all right, well, I took the test. Boom, I scored like super high on the test. And they're like, you're fucking great. I'm like, I must have fucking made mistakes on it, because, you know, I'm no fucking genius. I just fucking took it. So
well, we are our critics, so
so then they said, okay, you can go to college. So I went for a year, failed out of that shit, failed at everything. I failed out. Boom, right? First semester did good, second semester failed out. So I'm like, fuck it, this shit ain't for me. So then I got another job, but this job was paying me double with the last job. So I was like, this is going to be where I retire. You know, I've made it. You know, I've got the job.
Gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. So then after I got the second job, I remember there was they were looking for law enforcement officers. They were like, you know, if you want to join law enforcement, you can join law enforcement, but you needed X amount of college credits to become an officer. Right. So I was like, you know what, I'm already doing something similar. I forgot how many college credits at the time. So I was like, hey, I actually have that many credits. So I had got 2 job offers, one for the NYPD, because I had applied for the NYPD, and I was supposed to go in and turn in my paperwork for the NYPD. And there was another agency law enforcement that I had gotten a job offer for too. So holding them up together, I remember when it was right after 9/11. So when I went in, the NYPD was like, well, listen, you can't go back to college until after like a year. You have to do a year, and then you'll get a stable schedule. Then you can go to school, and we'll pay you back for every class that you take, and you get over a B or something. It was like they had a nice little system where if you wanted to go to school as a cop, you could still do it, but it would take like a year to do it. This other job was like, hey, you can go like soon as you start. You know what I'm saying? You get your schedule, and then you can go. So I was like, oh, you know what? This is where I'm gonna go. They pay the same, and I'll go there. And I went there, and then I just started going to school, and shit just became so easy for me. You know, and then I was in law enforcement, so I was doing all this stuff. I was making all these arrests. I had moved up all up in the ranks, and it was, you know, things were going good. And then I remember one time I had a boss, and he was the top of the food chain. It was like the top of the top, and there was something to do, because I was always good with computers too. So I was like an Excel wizard. So there was like something they needed to do in Excel. I showed them how to do it, and my boss was like, yo, what the hell do you want to do? And I was like, you know what, I like law and order. Maybe I can do the law thing. And he was like, no, you know, do you really want to be? Because he's like, you know, I'm a lawyer. And I was like, oh yeah. He's like, but do you really want to do the law thing? And I was like, I kind of do. So he was like, well, I'm going to make this simple for you. You've been here how long? And he said, you've been in a uniform. You make a lot of arrests. I don't want to lose you, but in 3 years, I'm going to make sure either you're fired, or it's so hard for you to work here that you're going to leave this job. Either you're going to go to law school, or you're going to do this. 3 years later, I'm still working there. And he's like, the shit didn't work, right? The shit didn't work. So there was a promotion, and it was a promotion to a top level job, 6-figure salary. I was the person for the job. I had all the experience, all the stuff. And my boss calls me in, and he calls me in, and he says, hey, when's your lunchtime? And I'm like, it's really whenever you tell me it is, because you're the fucking boss, you know? What the fuck? You know, you tell me when lunchtime is. So he's like, we're going now. So we go to, he takes me to a restaurant and says, I am not going to give you that job. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Everybody knows it's my job. You know it's my job. And he goes in and tells me, he says, you're the best person for the job. I'll be confident. You know, everyone knows it. He said, you know, this person knows it. HR knows it. We all know it. But I told them, if they send you the job, I will not sign it. I will not give you this job. That's what he told me.
What's the reason?
Because he said, you'll be wasting your life doing this if I give you this job. You are too smart to just sit here and do nothing. Take the test, take the LSAT, and go become a lawyer. He's like, that's what you should be doing. He's like, and he said, this is one of the hardest decisions. And then he gave the job to somebody, some rando too. He gave the job to the guy. And he said, if you don't like it, I want you to leave. So next thing I know, he gave me the LSAT, the test to get into law school was like 3 weeks away. So I was like, well, the test is 3 weeks away. I wouldn't fucking, you know, I had applied for it, but I never take it. I was like, I'm supposed to go take the test in 3 weeks. He was like, listen, we're giving you 3 weeks off. Take 3 weeks off, do what you got to do, but you're going to take the test. So I took 3 weeks off, took the test, and got a high enough score to get. I got offers from like 10 different law schools, and I got free rides from 3 law schools. I got, you know, I was, and then at that point it was like, what law school do you want to go to? I can go for free or I can go pay. And so it was kind of like, well, let's just do it. Let's just go to law school. So I at that time I had my wife, you know, I had been married. And I told the wife, I was like, let's just jump into it and make it happen. So I went to law school and became like one of the top people at the law school. I was so good. After I left law school, I graduated law school, passed the bar. Actually, I was in the top 10% of the class. So they allowed me to actually take the bar exam while I was in law school, which is unheard of. So I took the bar exam while I was in law school. I passed the bar in my last semester of law school. So when people were graduating to practice take the bar, I had actually studied for the bar while in law school, passed it. And then when I was you know, it was like, you know, I was wherever I wanted to work, I could work. So then so that's kind of what led me through the whole process to get through law school. So I had just, you know, I was just extremely fortunate, extremely happy. The law school, the people at the law school, it was the greatest experience. And then when I got that degree, I remember I did it a lot of times, and this I think is community based. People don't know how their own success affects other people. And and in my community in Harlem, I didn't know any lawyers, and no one else does either, right? No one else really knows any professionals. So when I graduated law school, I didn't know that people in my community, in my building. Now, my mom obviously tells everybody everything, but I didn't know people in the community knew that I had graduated from law school. So when I came back, I see like balloons up and a party up, and they're like, I'm like, oh, what's the celebration for? They're like, this is for you. You made it. Now, in the hood, for people who don't know, either you sell crack rock or you got a great jump shot. That's generally the way people think you get out of the hood. You know what I'm saying? You got a great rap record or something like that. You know, you get out the hood. Most people who get out the hood don't do it by becoming doctors and lawyers or PhDs. It's, you know, a basketball player. So I became the guy that people in my and just in my neighborhoods were saying, we want our child to be like him.
Right. The
guy who went to school, the guy who we know whose parents were out here selling drugs and doing this. You know, I sold drugs before. And when I was a kid, I sold drugs before. And they were saying that if he can do it, then you guys can do it, because he's from the same place. He is from this neighborhood. He is from, you know, this is not some unicorn this is somebody who grew up in the streets, who played basketball, who did this, who was running from the cops with other kids. If he can do this, anybody can do this. And it was just that to the community was so instrumental that now it lets me know that my success wasn't just my own success. It was success for all of us. And they helped me in that success more than I even knew. You know what I'm saying? It was an accomplishment for us as a community, not just for my own personal gratification.
Well, now you're now a shining example of what you can achieve. What for your community, right?
Yeah, it's funny. There was when I was in law school, there was one woman. I was a super nerd. I'm just gonna say it because I love this shit. I love reading this shit. I just love this shit. So I was a super fucking nerd. And I'm so sorry about the word. So I was a nerd, and
it's quite all right.
and there was in law school. Think about this. A lot of people don't understand this. In law school, most of the people in law school are the top of their class from whatever school they came from, right? Those are like the top of the top, especially if the law school is giving you money. So I was in one of the sections where all of us, because I got a free ride. So what they do, law schools are funny. They put everybody who got scholarships together, and then you got to compete to keep your scholarship. So for instance, I had a free ride, but everybody in my law school class had scholarships. They have like separate classes. So my section all had scholarships, and what they say is that to keep your scholarship, you got to be in the top 50% of your class.
Right.
So if they put us all together, they know half of those people are going to lose scholarships, and on the other side, half of those people aren't going to lose scholarships. So I was in the I was in the top of the top. These were all the top people from all the top schools, and all of them had scholarships. So it's like, oh shit, I got to keep up with them. Now I had been in school for so long, and I'm like, shit, I'm the old guy. I got to keep up with these guys. So I remember I was doing so well that one of my professors was like, yo, as in torts. And there was another woman, and she's from Princeton. And she was from Princeton. She had 2 doctorates, and she was from Princeton. She was having problems. So the professor was like, yo, why don't you ask Nate to help you? Nate is, he's like, he can probably fucking teach this shit. I was like shocked that she said that. And then,
but you're like the prodigy or something now.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I didn't know I knew it that well. But I would hold like sessions where we had like a community sessions where in law school all of us would come together and try to learn the material and stuff like that. And I was like in the top of the class. So I remember what she said, because what happens is that we have a picture book, and the picture book tells you what schools you graduated from. And mine just said City College, and not everybody else is like, magna cum laude. Mine just said City College. So she said to the professor, she was like, no one from the hood from City College is going to be able to teach me anything. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you know what I mean?
Well, of course, a lot of people end up with attitudes like that for sure.
But she was still having problems. And I remember she came to me, and she's like, hey, she asked me one question. And I answered the question, but it was such a great answer that people from like the next room came over and was like, can you explain that to us? So that they're like, oh, you're really good at this. So next thing you know, you had a whole bunch of people. And then I tutored her. And I remember at graduation, we were graduating. And, I remember she came up to me, and she was like, I didn't know that I had a problem with race. I didn't know I had this personal bias against people of color. And she was like, it's hard for me to say this. And she said it in front of her family. She was like, you are the smartest person I know, and you happen to be Black and from the hood. She was like, this has now educated me that it's not where you come from, but it's what you do. And she was like, and now she's like a real advocate, like a real strong advocate for people of color, for Black, like she did, like almost her cases are Black Lives Matter cases. Like she's a real strong advocate, because she now feels that it's not about who you are, but the opportunities you had. And if more Black and brown people had opportunities, they would be like me. My story is one of lost opportunity for other people, not of this unicorn. And that's the way she took it. And it was a good thing, but it just shows you, even at a prestigious law school that's left wing, they still have problems with race. So,
well, sometimes it takes something like that to fully open someone's eyes to the situation, right? So, but I think that's a fantastic story, Nate. I mean, you obviously impressed her right off the hop with the answer that you gave for her question. So,
Yeah,
you probably had her hook, line, and sinker right there.
I'll tell you this too. If, for those of you who want to go to law school, it's tough, right? It's super tough. But don't go like I did. Don't go married. Go single. Because I'm going to tell you, brother, that law school now is like, it's unbelievable.
I know.
I mean, you think shit is crazy. It's because you know what happens? Just imagine having everyone so wound up so tightly, everybody's trying to, and then right when you pass the test or right the test is over, all that release just throws it out all over you. You know what I mean? It's just out there in the bar, in the club. Like so many situations where we all go to somebody's house. I remember one time we had this party after finals, right? We go to somebody's house. It's like, next thing is it's like me and 3 other guys and all like these beautiful women from different law schools, from even some attorneys. And next thing I know, people are like taking off clothes to go to a pool. There's nobody's in bathing suits. So everybody's got to, I'm like, I got to get out of here. I'm a married man, before I get in trouble, I was
going to say, I never get invites to parties like this. What the hell?
I wasn't invited. I was dragged along because we all jumped in the car, going to somebody's house just right after party. But no, it's they play hard and it is if one thing, don't go when you're married or in a relationship, because it will be a test.
Dun dun dun.
You don't know. But it's fun times. It's fun times.
So how long have you been married?
I've been married for about, what is it? My wife, hopefully she's not watching this, about, I think, 11 years now. 11 years. 11
well,
years.
Congratulations. You know what? In today's day and age, my marriage lasted 3 months, man.
Woof.
Yeah. I caught her doing other guys and cocaine and teaching her kids to lie to me about it. So,
yeah. Well, you know what? For I don't know. It's at a point, I think, with me and my wife, we met each other when we were both on the come up. Like she was doing her thing, and I remember every time, like when I was trying to advance in life, she was that person to say, "Go do it. Go take this test. Go do. Hey, you'll never know." And that really helped propel me to the next level. To take that promotional test, to do this. And I remember even going to law school. She also said that same thing. She's like, she said, "Why not? Let's see what happens." And we saw what happens, and it was pretty good.
Cool, very cool. Your lamp wants to know why he's not
because my kids and stuff are with the lamp, so that's why I'm in a different location. But the lamp is going to gets top billing. The lamp gets top billing. Don't worry about it.
It's got its own YouTube channel. I noticed.
Yeah, the lamp is crazy, but I love that lamp. I love that.
Oh, what's this? A friend of mine's getting a little excited because I guess somebody phoned him. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. These things move so quickly. Yeah. Aaron Raw just called me on the phone. Well, he's not going to call you on the microwave oven, dude. Of course, it's going to be the phone.
Yeah, Aaron's a great guy.
Oh, he's awesome.
And it's so funny because my conversion to being more or less an outed atheist now, really took place here in our community. Because it's so funny when I first came to this community, I call it the philosophical community. When I came to this community, some of the first people I actually interacted with were all theists. Like I don't know if the True Empiricism and Matt Slick and Bible Thinking.
Yeah, Matt Slick. Anyway.
These are all people, and the way I met them is that I watched the Atheist Experience with Matt, and I was watching like the Magic Sandwich Show with Aaron and all these other people, and Dragnot. And I remember I was actually looking for people to argue against them, to say, that they were wrong. I was always like, okay, this sounds right to me, but what's the counter argument? So I would go and find these people making these counter arguments and try to figure it out. And that's kind of how going on those shows. So the first shows I ever went on were theist shows, trying to figure out, what was the counter arguments to atheists? Because I wanted to argue against atheists. And the first atheist show I went on was actually, and it's going to be wild, Steve McRae.
Mm-hmm.
He was, and when I went on his show,
that was a while ago.
It was so long ago. It was we're talking about years ago. It was when he first came on the scene, and we just had a conversation. And then that's when it was kind of like, okay, this is bullshit. And there's so many people who didn't understood. And then that's when I graduated, because like a lot of people don't know this, even though we hate each other now, we will probably kill each other. Steve, Dragnot, Scientist Sam. If you look at my channel, my first video I ever did was Steve McRae, Dragnot Silvis, all the people that a lot of the people now who hate me to death we were close friends, and they were part of my journey together. And so like even now, no matter how much Steve hates me, no matter how much Red Rhetoric hates me, they will always have a special place in my heart, because when I needed people the most to understand this philosophical thing, me arguing with Steve but it's not the people who I agreed with, it's the people who I didn't agree with that helped me move forward in my understanding of everything. Like Steve's understanding of atheism, without him butchering it to death, didn't help me actually research it to understand why he was wrong. Me researching why these theistic arguments, me researching William Lane Craig and reading all his crap and understanding why he was wrong. It was so powerful to give me an understanding on why I didn't believe this stuff. And now I'm at the point where it's not the fact that I don't want, before I wanted to believe it's true. Now I want people to evaluate it critically for themselves, because I think if you do that, you'll come to the same conclusion I did.
Right, for sure. For people that are, that are at that point, a book that I like to recommend so that people could check it out, what it was like for someone else who had to go through that sort of part of deconversion, is Why I Became an Atheist by John W. Loftus. And I had him booked for the show, but something came up and he couldn't do it. But he recommended a couple other people for me to have on, which turned out to be great interviews. But hopefully I'll get back in with him and get him on the show, because John is a great guy and he's super, super interesting. And some of his story, just listening to his book, because I have it also on Audible. I was listening to a little bit of that today at work, because I've already read the hardcover, but I also like to listen to them because it fills my time at work. Right? Oh yeah,
and I love listening to audiobooks.
Me too.
Makes it so much easier. I think Go For It asked Nate about G-Man.
Oh Lord, why, Peter? Why?
No, it's funny because, and I don't know, I hate even admitting this. When I first saw G-Man reminded me of me. He reminded me of me being that person who is out there saying this is crap, atheists are evil, and I don't know. It's just like he just never woke up. He's 40 years old and has never just had the epiphany. I had it when I was in my 20s. He just reminds me of me so much when I was really into it and just didn't know what I was talking about. But you couldn't tell me. You couldn't tell me. I was an expert at knowing what I didn't know, and that's exactly what it was.
It's good to know the things that you don't know, because that way you're not going to pretend like you know something and paint yourself into a corner, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've done that kind of a stupid thing to do, and it never works out. I don't do it anymore, but
I used to like, me and G-Man used to hang out. We were cool, but again, it's. I think when you go through life, it just happens where you lose people. But I think we lose people for various reasons. It's funny because right now I've lost another friend because they're a Trump supporter, and I always find that I lose friends because if they can't convince me to believe something that they believe wholeheartedly, then it's kind of like that's the breaking point. And and it happens to me only with people who are who can't accept that I am not dogmatic with my way of thinking.
Right.
And when you can't, and if I can't disagree with you on a point, then eventually we just can't be friends, because it's just like, I'm not going to sit there and just kowtow to say that I believe you. If I don't believe you, I'm going to tell you I don't believe you.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually recently had a couple of discussions with people that they're trying to convince me of something. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. One of them, of all the stupidest things, is, and I understand that the point of the conversation was that his wife couldn't take certain things because they were bad for her. They could put her into seizures and stuff. Mm-hmm. But he was saying, oh yeah, she can't have Tylenol, she can't have Advil, she can't have acetaminophen. She can't have Advil. I'm like, wow. Advil doesn't have acetaminophen. He's like, yes, it does. I'm like, no, dude, it's
ibuprofen.
Yeah. He goes, yeah, but it says so right on the package. So I'm like, really? Well, how come it doesn't say it on this package? Right? Was it have a picture of the package? Well, that's not the right package. I go, yeah, it's the old design. We know they're blue now. We get it, but it's still nowhere on the package does it say. And he just it's that Dunning-Kruger thing. He just couldn't accept the evidence I was showing him that there is no acetaminophen in. I'm saying, and I understand that you're just being scared and protective of the wife. You don't want her to get have a serious incident. But I'm trying to. This is with that aside. There's no acetaminophen in Advil. And he got pissed off and walked out, and I'm like, oh boy, touched the nerve, I guess.
Like, yeah. Read the label, brother. Read the.
I also went to the pharmaceutical website and Advil's personal website, and there's no acetaminophen in there any of their products.
There's no convincing that guy. There was no convincing him. So, and I hope I never get to the point where there's no convincing me, and I always feel like I'm at that point. And when I feel like I'm at that point, when I feel like I'm so convinced of something that there's no. Then I know that something is wrong, because I always feel like I'm always open. I'm always open to counterpoint, except when it's just like when your reasoning is just so crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Like I was just going to say, you're never going to convince me that the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old. Not going to happen.
But you know what? I would answer that question differently. I'm saying based on everything I know now from modern science, it seems to be impossible, and I'm not going to believe it. But that could change as if they find out that we're in a simulation, then I'm like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
So I'm saying, the only way you're going to convince me is with evidence, exactly. and reason. If
convincing evidence.
Yeah.
I want to throw that caveat in there.
And I hate saying this too, but I don't choose what I believe, or I don't choose what's convincing, what's not.
No,
convincing.
That's right. You're either convinced or you're not, right?
Yes, and. Yeah. I can tell you why I'm not convinced something is the case. I can tell you why I'm not convinced but to convince me, it's the strength of the evidence, and I think the strength of the evidence convinces me of a lot of things. It convinces everybody of a lot of things. And I always say this to theists. If you want to convince me there's a God, then you got to convince the news media and everybody else, because the level of convincing where if it's on the nightly news and they say evidence for God and here it is, that would probably be a little bit more convincing to me, because I know their standards is such that for them to run something, here is stone cold evidence, we've determined God is real, that would lead me to be more convinced. But I would have to then see the background evidence for that too, because the mainstream media is not too great with the facts. But you know what I'm saying? It has to be some type of tremendous event like that, like space aliens. If somebody, people say there are, but until I actually see one, or the news media we found one, then okay, I'm more it's more convincing to me.
I was just recently watching, I was reading this thing, an article. I think it was, was it? It was Skeptic magazine. It may have been Skeptic magazine, where they were talking about the whole possibility of aliens, and they were saying that this group, I guess, that's out of SETI, has come up with a new round sort of number. They figure in our galaxy, if we go by, take all the different equations, like the Drake equation, the paradox one, whatever that one's called, and add them all sort of together, they figure there could be around 36 civilizations in our galaxy alone.
Oh, wow. So,
but are they advanced? Are they primitive? They could be varying stages. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, let's face it, in our lifetime, if they're there, we're probably not going to know about it in our lifetime.
Think about this. What our signals have just been going out for like the past 80 years. So if you're talking about light speed, it's 80 years away, and plus they're so far away now. The signal strength is probably like almost non-existent. You know what I'm saying? So it's such a small point of our galaxy. It's almost going to be impossible to find, I think, alien lives in our lifetimes, for instance. But I don't know. I have faith that unless the planet's destroyed by us or by some outside force, hopefully we can get to the point where these conversations and this history that we're making on this planet, we can spread out. So, so we're not beholden to the earth. Because right now, unfortunately, we're susceptible to any kind of crazy event that happens, an asteroid hits or something like that, and our life changes. Look at this virus. Look how fragile our existence is to one virus that one person caught in China. What I'm saying? Now people are suffering with it all over the globe. So I think for us as a species, I hate saying this, but we almost have to become like a cancer and infect other places in the galaxy to grow. In other words, we got to go to other planets. We got to go to the stars. I think that's
in our future for sure.
Yeah, but I think the thing that's holding us back is religion. Religion's holding us back because it makes it like there's some pie in the sky that we don't have to grow. We don't have to. We already know it all, or we know somebody else who knows it all. And I think that way of thinking,
and we're his favorites.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, for sure, I think eventually humankind will come in contact with another species. I think I'm not going to give up on me being alive when we get the first signal. I think that could possibly happen.
Yeah, no, it could. But the thing is that if we do meet aliens, if they're advanced enough to get to where we're at, then I'm saying where they could come to us. They're going to be so advanced, it's going to be crazy. They're going to look. It's going to be godlike. Think about this. Our nearest star is going to take us hundreds of thousands of years, right? The nearest star is going to take us like 30,000 years to get to the nearest star at today's
nearest star is the sun, dude.
Well, that's true. Not to the sun is going to take. It takes us a couple of years to get to the sun, right? A couple of months to get to the sun, anyway. But I'm talking about just the nearest star in terms of what's the Alpha Centauri. So it's. I think
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at Voyager. Voyager
4 light years away. I think it is 4 light years.
Yeah. And Voyager's been out there from 1977, and it's just made it past the heliopause. It just broke the heliopause. So it's
it's just cruising too.
Yeah, it's our expanse is so far away. So I'm hopeful. I think the best, if you're talking about alien life, I think the best possibility of us finding it is going to be the new satellite they're putting up. The Webb satellite, James Webb. The James
Webb satellite,
where it can see atmospheres in other planets, and then you can see if there's oxygen. If you got oxygen, you have the same conditions here. You can say, okay, that planet is likely to have life. I think that's the closest we'll get before we get any signals.
It's almost a much larger take on like a spectrometer. It'll or an ICAP machine or something. It'll show you the light spectrum, and all the elements will pop in wherever they lay on the light spectrum. It'll tell you exactly which elements are in the atmosphere of that planet. And then we'll know for sure if it can have life. But mind you, the only sampling of life that we know is what we have here. So we're used to whatever enables life on this world. But it could very well be something like there could be a methane breathing species out there. We don't know this.
But I also think, though, if you're talking about, let's say if you do find another planet, there's certain things that we know, like oxygen, right? There's certain ways that you can produce oxygen, photosynthesis. So we can look for particular markers, like you're saying, and see, okay, there's an overabundance of oxygen here. That's got to be some type of chemical process. Other than from what we know, it's got to be the photosynthesis, or you have chemosynthesis, and so the forth. So I'm thinking you can see. I'm thinking that's what they're going on. If we can see something that has all the markings of life, or we expect life to be, then that'll probably be our prime candidate.
For sure, absolutely. And that's next year that's telescope's getting launched, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been put back for the past 10 years. So maybe hopefully next year, but we'll see.
Hopefully that would be wicked. I'm really anticipating seeing what the results from this one is going to be about. It's all like the Hubble all over again. Ooh, we get to look further into space now. Sweet, because
further than Hubble. Right? Just imagine that, further than Hubble. It's amazing. Hopefully, if I die, they'll put me in a casket and shoot me out in space. But that costs too much money. I gotta, that's what I like, to shoot my body in space, and hopefully I'll be found by some life form in a distant future that'll bring me back to life.
Revive you?
Yeah. Oh my God, I had such a great nap.
I wanted to do, yeah. Well, what are we doing? Suddenly, I just had visions of the Aliens movie where everyone wakes up. And
my shirt. Oh, my God.
Yeah. But anyways, Nate, we've done the hour. So I'm going to take a quick smoke break and come back, and then I'll give you a new, fresh link, and you can hang out with us for a little bit, and then you got to go do what you got to go do, of course. And I know there's a few people that are going to want to come in and say hello and ask you a couple questions.
Oh, cool. Yeah, definitely.
I was so enthralled with our conversation. Normally, I see questions in the site, and I missed a few today. I'm sure I did, and I apologize, guys. But sometimes I get wrapped up in the chat with the guests more than other times. So, but it does happen. But anyways, that's not a knock on anyone I've had on the show. But there are days when I'm a lot more focused and days when I'm not as focused. Like it's just because of my tiredness level or whatever.
Being human.
Yeah. Just because, I'm human. So, but dude, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Actually, chatting with you because I'm always watching. I'm going, yeah, Nate, yeah, you fucking tell them what it is, that kind of shit, right? But now I get to talk to you face to face, and that was really cool, Nate. It's great to have you on, dude.
It's awesome. Listen, thank you so much for having me on, and
My pleasure,
please keep it going. I've watched your Bionic Dance because it's interesting.
She's so awesome.
Yeah, because I've been watching all those deconversion stories, and I've seen them over the years, and it's always remarkable of how we got here, but it's so wild because it's like now I don't really consider myself to be, how do I say it? I don't consider myself to be a former Christian in that sense. I just consider myself to be someone who, and I hate to say woke, but I just
I hate that word.
Yeah, I kind of consider myself someone that just critically evaluated something they believed and found it to be not true. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah. And well, call me what you want, but I just don't believe a 2,000-year-old book about men walking on water and there being days before the sun. It makes sense. That's
fucking
just
zombies and shit, and talking fucking animals and bushes that burn but don't burn.
It sounds like a great movie, but it doesn't sound like real life. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well,
please shoot me that link, and I'll definitely be there. Thanks again for having me. I really, really appreciate this.
My pleasure, brother. It's great having you on. And thank everyone in the chat for hanging out with us. I hope you guys had a good time. We sure as hell did having our little chat here, talking about all kinds of things. But right now we're going through this whole pandemic thing, guys. So like I've added this to my closing statements of my show. Just remember to be well and be safe, and above all, be kind. And like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.